Hey everybody, I'm Lisa, the Dream Doula for Women.
Oh, and I'm Edie Raether, and I am the maestro of motivation and mindset mastery.
Oh,
And
that's
I
so
am
many
happy to be
M's.
here.
That's so many M's. What a great alliteration. Say that again, please.
I am the maestro of motivation and mindset mastery.
I love it. Well, someone told me today, and maybe you've heard this before, like, how do you turn off your brain? Is your brain just going and going and going? And I said, what? And she said, just do this. Let your jaw go slack. Did
You
that turn
know,
off your brain? And I was
I,
like, wow, it did, but it's a bad look.
that's interesting because I've been doing hypnosis for 60 years, and that
Ooh.
is in it. And I don't know when I or where I picked that up. But when I'm telling people, getting them into alpha, I do say, let your jaw hang comfortably into place. And I was told decades away that um, or decades ago, I should say, that it releases tension in every cell of your body. And she was saying you should do it too. What was that?
When your brain is racing and you can't shut off your mind,
Well,
to do
that
it to
if
quiet
I
your
guess
mind.
if you release the tension in your body, that'll quiet the mind. Yeah, that's
Right
interesting.
on. And she's a body worker who works with people's fascia. And so the first time I met her, she explained that she was working on a cadaver. Sorry for everybody that doesn't want to hear about death. She was working on a cadaver, and when they moved something in the eye area, it moved the toe. She said,
Interesting.
don't underestimate how your body is
And I did
all
work with
interconnected.
cadavers as an occupational therapist.
Yeah,
I've been there.
yeah.
In fact, we
Oh my
named
gosh.
one was Clarissa. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
you give them names so that they seem human, right? They
Yeah,
are human. They're humans, human shells that they left behind. Wow. So tell us a little bit about the mind mastery work that you do. You know how to do hypnosis. That's cool.
I've done hypnosis. I do brain training and neuroplasticity, and they all really overlap. And I change lives and
Yes.
enlighten them because of it. I've had very good results, and oftentimes in one session, really.
Wow.
85% of the people, like for smoking or something that's just a habit. I shouldn't say just a habit. Habits, first we make our habits and then our habits make us. We are what we repeatedly do. But I would say 85% quit after one session. And then I tape it on their phones so that they can have the repetition. Repetition is really crucial. Even though they quit, repeat it because it strengthens, it clears, it creates new neural pathways. So when you have a bad habit like smoking, drinking, anxiety is a bad habit. Anxiety is a habit. Worry, worry is a wish you don't want. It's a habit. And so if you're trying to get rid of, say, anxiety, it's just a matter of looking at our neural network and creating a new neural network. And when you do it repeatedly, it becomes stronger. The groove becomes, it's like water. Water will go wherever the groove is the greatest. But the more you play it, you put a groove in your brain basically, and then the new pattern will take place, which is, to not worry, but to feel empowered. Mhm.
That is so beautiful. There's so much anxiety in the world. And a lot of young people are now saying, I have an anxiety disorder. They're
Well,
naming it and claiming it.
yep, you got it right. And I like the way you put it. So much anxiety in the world. You have to know that it is a choice. Every
Mm.
single moment of your life is a choice. You choose how you're going to respond. You're not a mouse or a rat in a cage. You have
That's a
the,
great analogy.
yeah, with the cerebral cortex. We have conscious choice. We are different than, the reptilian brain, fight, flight, the emotional brain, but people don't exercise it. And in my last TEDx talk, I've done a few. It was on, is AI and digital dopamine making us dumb? And it is. And I think I told you I just started a children's character building program, but it's now a nonprofit. And I was just feeding some resources to them, and some of the research, it's horrible. 70% of the kids in the United States in eighth grade can't read at grade level. We're not talking about being superior. We can't even get average out of 70% of our, and in math, I think math was, it was math and reading. I think math was worse. 75%. Not good. Cannot perform. The statistics have dropped. And in my talk on is AI and digital dopamine making us dumb, which is really about excessive screen time. And parents are using this as a babysitter because
Yes.
they're not interacting with their kids. I mean, before,
Yes.
yeah, they have them on these things at 2, 3 years old. No, nothing, not even family. From 3, 4, 5 ish. If you have a call on a Zoom call because your grandparents are in California, you're in North Carolina, fine, but it can only be to like interact with that. And I was just talking to a school district because, by the way, I'm looking for recipients for the grant money that we're going to receive. So if you know, I'm here to wipe out poverty of the mind. But I saw a book on anxiety. Oh, here it is, on anxiety. And I said, I saw a couple on the desk, and I said, could I borrow one? It's Jonathan Haidt, The Anxiety Generation. And he says, absolutely no screen time until you're 16 years old. And it was just on the news that it's, I don't know, between 1 and 2 hours a day. Kids are on their phone. Well, if you're only in school from, let's say, 8 to whatever, and you consider lunch, if you're on your phone 1 to 2 hours a day, that might be 30%. And then we wonder why we have this drop. I'll tell you the other thing that when I put together the last TEDx talk, I learned a lot. The first TEDx talk is Brain Fitness for Kids, Cloning the DNA of Einstein. And there I reveal all of the neuroscience and psychology that's woven into my program, I Believe I Can Fly, which parents have seen a change in their child playing one of the audio tracks, just 5 minutes, 1 5-minute audio track, one time. And there was a significant, dramatic change in that child's self esteem and self confidence. So I know my program works, but yeah, Jonathan says nothing, nothing at all until age 16. And I'm wondering how many people on this call can say that they're waiting till then. They're not. And it's
Oh, I think they're not. I mean, I went on an airplane in the last couple months, and at the airport, one of my stopovers was 5 hours long, so I got to observe what people were doing. Was anyone looking at me while I was looking at them? No.
no, and they're
Maybe
not.
there might have been one or two toddlers, but the little kids had their iPads, the parents had their phones, other people
Yes,
had their computers. They're all just their bodies are there, but their minds are somewhere else.
you know what? And I'm living near the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, beautiful city. But it was just on the news too. I think it's like a 300, I believe, I don't want to be quoted on this, but I'm quite sure it was a 300% increase in murders committed by kids in the
What?
last year. This is unheard of. When the murder rate goes up 2, 3%, we are freaking out. I am
Mhm.
telling you, 300% in 1 year in one city. Every time I listen to the news, it's not really it's another 15-year-old killing a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old getting shot by. This is one city, and we're not Chicago. There's a lot of cities that are worse. This is
Yeah.
We are in a crisis. Delisa, we are in a crisis, and we are in such denial. I mean, we still brag like we're the greatest country on earth. I grew up in it in the 50s. I can honestly say we were. We really were. I mean, do you know what our math scores are? We're sixth and something. We're 14th. We're 26th. We're way down. We're down in healthcare. Why are we in this arrogant entitlement misbelief? We have we're living in denial. And I'll tell you one other thing, and you got me roiled up now, but I guess I'm becoming so aware. And I guess it started with the TED Talk because I don't even know how that came about, but it came about. So I started really getting into the dopamine and all of that. And I want to talk about that. But the bottom line is IQs. I'm going to be, what am I going to be this month? 81? I don't know. After you're 80, you just lose track. I'm in my 80s, and I grew up at another time. And people watch Happy Days, and it's like a pipe dream to them. No, that's what I lived in. The world
Yeah.
was safe. We didn't lock our doors. We didn't. There would always be some crazy person somewhere, but there was a sense of community, and everybody kind of took care of him. You know what I mean? He'd play the piano. He had it on his porch. He'd play at 3 in the morning, but nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt. And so,
Well, I think just to I have to interrupt you before I forget this thought. In the days when we knew our neighbors and we didn't
yep,
have a screen time to have our friends that live somewhere else on the planet, we
yep.
knew our neighbors. Maybe you lived in a town that was dangerous and you locked your doors. Maybe you lived in a town where you knew all your neighbors and you didn't. I was thinking the other day, when's the last time you welcomed a new neighbor into your neighborhood and brought them a cake? You
And we did
know?
that all the time before.
That's what well, I remember that from my childhood. My mother was taking a cake to the new neighbors. I'm like, why? Why, mommy? And she said, this is what you do.
That's just what I was going to say. There was no other option. When they
Yeah,
come in, you do something to greet them: salad, cake, lunch, whatever. And it
yeah.
still happened when I moved to the Raleigh area in 1997. The neighbor, it was 107 degrees, and I'm in this U-Haul truck. But yeah, they brought over lemonade and sandwiches, and there was that
Oh,
compassion, that sensitivity, that connectedness. And so without that, when I was putting together the talk, it was 13.8, but that talk is a couple years old now. I'll bet you it is close to 15 points in IQ drop from my generation to the kids growing up today. And Delisa, if we have another drop like this, as a society, we are going to be illiterate. We are going to be borderline intelligence. And I will tell you, this is serious because stupidity cannot support a democracy. It cannot.
yeah.
So we have to realize that this isn't just about getting good grades. This is about how we are going to live our life and if we're going to have the personal freedoms that we now have. It can't happen with stupidity. It has to be directed from above.
So if IQs are dropping, test scores are dropping. I remember 20 years ago, someone said if you're gonna write something, and it was a flyer or a class or something on the internet. I don't even remember what we were writing for, but go into Word and make sure it's eighth grade level reading. And I was like, wait, is this for adults? They're like, no, no, no. It needs to be eighth grade level for most people to read
Yeah.
it. And I thought, what the heck? What kind of world are we living in? And now it probably, if people can't read in the eighth grade, maybe we have to make it
Yeah,
sixth
it's
grade
lower.
level.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I read that just today because I'm posting this. My nonprofit is Wings for Wishes Academy.org, not .com. And I think I saw sixth grade level, and I'm not sure we're even reaching that. So you talked about being on the airplane. I'm a motivational speaker. I speak all over the world. I'm ramping it up again. And I'm thinking, do I want to be on a plane anymore? I will still fly because I can say I've had, over 80 years of good life. And if it crashes, it's not the way I want to go. But when I see 16 kids, and you know why that happened? And I'm in the business of thinking, if you go to my speaking site, it's just my name, edierather.com. I've got right on there, the main tags are better thinking, better decisions, better performance. And there was just another near mishap. A Japanese airline just hit a Delta airline today. We just had the mishap. What is that? A week ago. The day before that, at Reagan Airport, there was another near miss in that same airport. Our brains are being rewired, Delisa. We have brain damage. They have done the brain scan of somebody that just took a hit of cocaine or heroin, and they took the brain scan of a kid with too much screen time, and they look a lot alike. So at one time, and I think when I did the TEDx talk, they didn't like what I had to say. I got flagged, but it did get posted. 5 of them, the better ones, did not get posted, by the way. I find that interesting. If you had
Oh.
something mundane, but if you had anything that might be controversial, you know what? It's all about speaking the truth. And I am speaking the truth. So I think it was yesterday, I think it was out on the West Coast somewhere, a Japan Airlines went into the fin or the tail of the Delta plane. People aren't thinking because the cerebral cortex, which is how we're different than your cat or dog, and hopefully you are, is, that is our gift from God or whatever. It's the cerebral, the prefrontal lobes. That's where we make the higher level decision making, our creative thinking. That's where Einstein could do his tricks. There is a short circuit in the brain. And so now we're seeing this impulsiveness. Remember when I remember when we said you only have 15 seconds to make a good impression. Then it was 7. Now we're
Now
down
it's
to 1
3.
or 2. Is it 3
Yeah,
now? And it'll
3
probably go down
seconds.
to 1. It'll probably go down to 1. So with this impulsiveness, what's happening is there's a short circuit going on in the brain. It's not looping all the way up to the top where the prefrontal lobes are, where the neocortex is. So we're just acting like reptiles and animals. And that's why we have the killings. That's why we have the fight flight. There's 300, I think they said the other day, and I don't remember what period of time, that stop sign that buses put out. If you don't stop, you might kill a child. There were
Yes, I was behind a
300
bus.
people ran the stop sign in this area in a very short period of time.
No, well, people don't think about it. They're the bus stopped, go around it. I was behind a school bus this last week, and I thought, okay, school bus, small town. It didn't have that thing out that,
Well,
they
they didn't
wing it
even
out.
put it out. Oh, because people
No,
just
here's
stopped.
what happened though. The bus driver got off the bus, walked into the middle of the street with a stop sign, and let the kid walk. Then she got back in her bus and drove away. And I was like, high level. That's high level security for the bus
Really?
driver. Now, I suppose in the city, downtown city, maybe one of the kids would drive away with the bus while the bus driver was doing that. But the bus driver was so, careful to get this
Yeah.
kid to cross the street. It was beautiful. I thought it was so beautiful. Let me ask you something about impulsiveness and the brain and Einstein because it triggered a memory for me. I I studied some coaching techniques with Mary Morrissey at the Brave Thinking Institute, and
Mhm.
one of her guest speakers was Jean Houston, and I'm sure you know who that is.
Oh my God. Jean. No, she's my
Jean.
primary mentor. She asked me to work with her in the
Oh my God,
70s.
Jean. I tell young kids Jean Houston,
Oh,
they're like, "Who's that?" I'm like,
oh my
"She's
God. She is
if
the
you're a
epitome.
kid, you're like, she's the goat." And she's the one who apparently when she was in grade school, Einstein came to her class. She
Oh, I
tells a
didn't.
story. She goes, Einstein came to my class and he said, does anyone have a question? And she's like, I raised my hand. I said, Mr. Einstein, how did you get to be so smart? And this is what he said. I'm not smart. I just use my imagination.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So where in the brain do we access our imagination? And I tell people how to access their intuition while they're sleeping in their dream state. But how would you suggest someone tap into their imagination for an answer like Einstein would do?
Well, you know what? This is interesting. Yeah, she is my primary mentor. My first book is Why Cats Don't Bark. It's on intuition, by the way.
I
It's
love
it's
it.
yeah, it's on your soul's code and calling in life and listening to that inner voice to guide you to know why you're on this earth and to do what you're meant to be doing. And
Uh,
so, yes, I spent, can you believe this, 10 days with her, and we went 12, 14-hour days, and it was $175 for 10 days with about 150 hours. And she asked me to be an associate, but I had a kind of passive husband. We ended up in divorce anyhow. I knew it would cause problems at home. I turned down working with Jean. Can you believe
mm,
this? One of my biggest regrets, but it is what it is. But yeah, no. But she never told the story. I think I would have remembered it about Einstein. That's interesting.
yeah.
But yeah, creativity, that is basically it's more of a right brain. It's upper right brain. It's cerebral right brain. There's limbic right brain, and that's people who are more like the cheerleader, the salesperson, the connector, the communicator. But it's an upper right brain person. But there again, that is in our higher level neocortex and so forth, and we're short circuiting. So I'm concerned: are we going to have another Beethoven? Are we going to have another Einstein? And so what I see happening in the world, and I'll get to your intuition thing, And I just saw it when I was looking at the facts for my kids' website. It's almost like the rich is getting richer and the poor is getting poorer. We're becoming a third world country, really. We really are. So
Yeah.
there's still going to be the exceptional people, the Elon Musk and the people that can, just create unbelievable things, whether you like him or not. He's smart. And I think his IQ is 168 or something. It's pretty high. But so they said in that category, people are even rising. But the majority of the people in the lower 25 or 50% percentile, that's where literacy is out the window. And so when we talk about creativity, and that was actually one of the first subjects I ever talked about, it's really understanding how to get into that creative mind state. And you really do it first by getting into a meditative state. You got to get into alpha. You just got to
Yeah.
start doing the do the singing bowls. You get into it, and that's what Gene Houston talks about. It's all about getting into an altered state of consciousness, because Gene, by the way, back in the 60s when I was in New York City, what she did, she was living in New York then. She was doing LSD had come out. So they were doing studies with what happens with LSD. And their mission was to recreate, because people were really creative, not encouraging people to go on LSD by any means, because I was in a psych hospital where we had people that tried it once and they were hospitalized for life. So I'm not encouraging it. But in a study, they were testing what kind of mind stuff was going on. And so Gene's mission was to recreate it naturally with the drumming, basically with altered states of consciousness, with what I call neuroscience now, with the hypnosis, with yeah. And so you just get into that alpha state where the heavens kind of open to you and you have a higher level of consciousness. You can even go so low as theta. You don't want to go too low, because that's called death. That's mainlining. We don't want to do that. But so it's getting into that state. Now I'll tell you, this reminds me of something I read in the 70s, just came to mind. What they found out, a pharmaceutical company did a study on creative people. And they found that people who were in like wheelchairs or had limitations or physical disabilities were more creative. And it's like, really? What? Oh, you're going to like this. Do you have an idea why? Yeah, I'll tell
Tell
you.
me, tell me, tell me.
Yeah, it was one of the Pfizer, one of the big companies. So they really delved into it. It was that they had more time
Mm.
to think, to be open, to hear that inner voice, to listen to their intuition, because what was happening is they weren't running kids to soccer games, right? Their wife or their husband had to do it. The other person had to do it. And so they had time to be in that altered state, and the messages will come to you. They will come to you. They will.
That's
And you
so
can do it
beautiful.
through drumming,
Oh,
you can do it through music, new age music, binaural beats, some of the stuff that Maury Zorkovich does. He's a step ahead of binaural beats. You can write to me and I'll introduce you to him. There's so much now that creates, and it will come to you. But we don't, because you know why? Because we're too busy with this, honey. We're too busy.
well, if you think you're being creative by making a post on social media, maybe you are using your creativity for a quick minute. But as you can see, I'm in my art studio and I create the slow way, like with a paintbrush and
Yeah.
paints. And a painting might take me 3 months to make. And I was thinking the other day of I have a friend in Seattle, Norman Lundeen, and he was talking at one of his art shows to a gallery full of fans. And he said, you know, you're in the zone, meaning the creativity zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're in the zone when you decide to stop for lunch and you see that it's 8 o'clock p.m.
Ha! I love that.
And I'm
Oh,
quite sure he's done that in his studio. So, yeah,
that's so true. That is so
time goes away when you're really being creative. Um, sometimes you don't even remember where you are. It's like being in a dream state. It's in that
yeah.
part of your mind where things can bubble up. or you can be nowhere
Yes.
in a
You
real meditative
become
nowhere
one.
state.
You become one with the word if you're a writing or an author. You become one with the
Yeah.
instrument, like Winston Marsalis. If you're
Yeah.
into music, it's becoming one with that process, isn't it? It really is.
Well, and the power of creativity. I mean, we all were created by another human, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the power of creativity, if people say, "Oh, I'm not creative," not true. You are creating your life every moment with your mind and with the things you do. And some people, they don't feel like they're creative because they're not painters or musicians or actors, but I bet they're good at cooking or gardening or
Exactly.
arranging things, whatever everybody has
Thine own
a
self
creative
be true.
superpower.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And when you said, wait, I just was writing something down. I'm not, oh, when you said I'm not creative. As soon as you say that, you're not going to be creative because you have just told the cells in your body and in your brain and in your mind that you're not creative. So, how can it manifest? If I say they've done studies every day and every way, I'm getting better and better. They did that in Germany eons ago. People got better and better. So, when people say, I can't do math, which I have said, and I saw that was my best subject in early childhood in grade school. I can't see, I'm still saying it. Don't, I got to stop saying it. So we get in the habit of saying, we identify with that. I'm not creative. Well, guess what? You just put a huge roadblock into the possibility of you being creative. And it's like you said earlier, I have anxiety when you said that. You claim it, you name it, you claim it. No, you don't have anxiety. You have to reframe it to what you need to do to get out of the anxiety, because otherwise you're digging a deeper hole. Every time you say I'm anxious, you identify the problem. You do have to identify it to overcome it. You can't cure cancer unless you know that's what you got.
True.
But once you identify it, as a therapist, I always spend 4 to 6% of the time when I'm seeing someone, 4 to 6% identifying the problem. The rest of the time, I am in conflict resolution. Whether I'm rewiring their brain like an electrician, I go down to the subconscious, which is a million times more powerful. So, shame, I don't want to say shame on you. That's just such an ugly word. But I question the therapists that aren't using these methods. I really do.
Well,
Because the difference is,
yeah.
you want a shovel or a backhoe? You want to see a therapist for 3 years? Fine. Do you want to get it done in a few sessions? Let's get a backhoe and rewire and get it done. You know?
I love that, Edie, so much because I tell people in my practice, I'm a coach. Coaches look into the future. And I'm not against therapy. If you want to go get therapy, cool. Therapists look into your past. And I
Well, they
I know
shouldn't be
people,
though. I'm a therapist too. I'm a coach and a therapist.
yeah,
A good therapist doesn't spend all their time. Well, how was your week? Well, my husband's yelling at me again, and he got to, and they'll just repeat the same problem, and they're digging a deeper hole, and they get worse. They're
yeah,
addicted.
because and every week they can talk about it and talking about it makes them feel better
It's
somehow,
it's,
but they
it's like
don't
a
get out.
shower. It makes you feel better for a little while, but it wears
Yeah,
off. Yeah, you're
yeah.
absolutely right. Yep, yep. It
But I have a
doesn't.
friend who had the same therapist for 25 years. And
Okay.
then he retired and she was bereft.
25 years she paid somebody for therapy.
Yeah.
Did it ever occur to her that there was something wrong? I mean, when you get your car fixed, you go in every week to have your car fixed. Come on.
No,
You know what it
no.
is? And I'm very angry, and I do have a therapy background, but I'll say this, and there's a lot of therapists on. No, I find it almost sinful. I really do. I don't think you deserve their money. You're not fixing the problem. You are creating a dependency.
Yes.
Go tell them to go to a meetup group. Get something else. They shouldn't have to pay you money to be there to listen. Go get a
Yeah.
friend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, exactly. They're like a paid friend at that point.
It is.
Now,
It
and
is.
this person was very high functioning person. I mean,
Really.
she had a beautiful life. but she was really upset when her therapist retired.
Yeah, no, it's an addiction. It really is. Now, when
Yeah.
I first did therapy in the 70s, see, I knew about hypnosis and visualization and everything way back then. So I was doing it back then, but people were looking at me like they were ready to burn me at the stake.
Yeah,
The
that was weird. That was black magic then.
Oh, yes. But I was getting results. I was with 4 or 5 psychiatrists, and the medical model tends to be very conservative.
Hmm.
But I was getting results. So they liked me. They didn't understand what I was doing. They didn't want to understand it because a lot of MDs are a little bit closed-minded. They only
Yes.
listen to other MDs, I find. And that
Hmm.
disappoints me. But, I mean, I had somebody here, airline pilot. A lot of airline pilots have drinking problems more than you want to hear. And I'm looking there because he was sitting in that chair. I saw him once and he stopped drinking completely. So I'm not against AA, but you know what? If in 1 hour I can get you off the sauce and get on with your life, what? And doctors don't recommend me. I mean, I tell them and they don't dislike me. They don't get it, but they don't take the time to learn why what I do works. And he also lost 42 pounds because he wasn't drinking. He lost 42 pounds. So he's
That's
healthy.
fantastic. So one session you can help someone quit smoking. One session you can help them quit drinking, and one session or more to deal with anxiety.
Anxiety and depression. I'm seeing someone right now with anxiety, and there it'll usually take more. And
Yeah,
I can't see that I can do that with everyone, that it's one session. If we need
sure.
more, yeah. But I record it. So that way they don't become dependent on me. I don't want their money. I mean, I got to pay my bills, but no, I've got enough different sources. But the bottom line is, so they have a library of the neuro reconditioning that I do, the brain training. And like the guy yesterday, he said, "Oh, I really liked your first one. I like this one more." I could feel it. I've got something when I was speaking in California on brains biology and belief. It's something to prevent the radiation.
Yeah,
And it's really cool now. I was so in sync with him. He said he could feel it. I was walking around the room and he said, "I couldn't believe it. You were saying all the right things. His traumatic past, his father that put him down all the time, whipped him, all of that. And this thing was so hot. It was like a burner on a stove. And once he left, it cooled off. It's cold now. Isn't that interesting? So if you're
very.
a therapist, I am fairly intuitive. And that's why my first book's on intuition. But but I do think as a therapist, it's really a plus to be intuitive because you
Oh,
can just
sure.
get in sync and then you can maneuver that energy because all of life is an energy exchanging process. I mean, we feel it. We go into a room and we can just, "I want to get out of here." Or somebody walks in the room and it lights up, right? I mean, we can say it so many different ways. But, when we were talking before about the people at the airport, and I remember years ago, there was a 5-year-old and it was so sad. The mother was on her phone. He didn't have a phone and he's staring out in space. And I thought, God, when I had extra time at a layover at an airport, I was asking the kids, like, what does the cow say or whatever. It was brain stimulation time. It was connecting time.
Yeah.
It was that special time that you have together. And the kid just sat there. I could feel his loneliness. And every couple minutes, mother's on the phone. She would touch his knee as if to say, "I'm here for you." I'm telling you, kids need more than that. And that's why they're joining gangs, because gangs are the family that they never had. Because I hate to say it, I don't think most parents are doing their job today. I really don't. And I think parenting
Yeah.
is harder. It was easier when my kids were growing up. They're in their 50s. They didn't have the internet, they didn't have all the competition. So being parent is a bigger job. So, but years ago, I remember families back in rural Wisconsin had over 20 kids, but that was to be farmhands. It was more work for the, but
Right.
so that has changed. But, maybe have fewer kids, but give them the attention they need so that you can leave a legacy through your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful.
And,
And
yeah,
the I'm having a brain cramp. The guy in charge of like health in the US. Like he had some official name. He said that we are in
You're
an
talking about
epidemic.
Kennedy? Kennedy, you're talking about?
No, no, the guy who
Oh,
took
oh,
stepped
yeah, yeah,
down.
yeah. What's his name?
He's got an Indian name. I can't pronounce it.
Oh, yeah, I know
Bija.
who you mean. Yeah,
Whatever. I'll put it in the show notes for people. Like, wish I could remember his name. But he said there's an epidemic of loneliness in the
yeah,
USA. That
yeah.
no, kids are lonely, adults are lonely because we don't know our neighbors anymore. We don't join churches and synagogues and groups. We don't go bowling. You know, we don't have things to do with other adults. We're just lonely, lonely, lonely humans.
And I'm so glad you brought this up because I was just on a call this week and somebody said there was the most extensive research ever done on aging and illness and everything else. And Harvard did it, a school that I think we've all heard of. And loneliness came up as the number one factor behind a lot of the illnesses that we're having, the aches, the pains, the depression,
Hmm.
loneliness. It's the new smoking. Remember when
Yeah.
smoking? Now a lot of our friends don't smoke anymore. I never did. But I forgot. I think it's in my TED talk, or maybe it didn't get in, but it'll be in my notes.
Now,
Listen to
how
this.
many TED Talks have you done, Edie?
I'm going to do my third pretty soon, but it's just two at this time. The brain
Okay.
fitness for kids and the is AI and digital dopamine making us numb. And more than AI, I should have said is screen time, doing it. And, but what you just said, uh, wait, I was on loneliness. Yeah, it was the number one factor. And they did it to the equivalent of smoking so many cigarettes a day. So I
Wow.
think I find that interesting that as much as I don't want you to smoke cigarettes, it's a stupid thing to do. And I know it's a habit, I can help you break it. But loneliness actually caused more problems than smoking. I can't remember how many cigarettes a day. Can you believe this?
Wow.
And
Sure, because if you're lonely, and I think a lot of people that are elderly are lonely, a lot of their family and friends have passed away, that maybe they live in a community where they don't really know anyone anymore. A lot of these retirement homes are lovely places, but they don't really know their neighbors. And if they do, they're new friends. They just met
right,
them 6 months or a year ago. And what can they do about that? What can we do about that? I love seeing things like I think it's in Denmark, where they have preschool kids go into the nursing home or the retirement homes, and they have college age kids going in there and living in rooms with these elderly people, and everyone
oh,
benefits.
I did
Imagine
not
that.
know that.
Oh, you should look that up, Edie.
Oh
It's
my gosh.
imagine a college kid hanging out with you at dinner
Oh my
time in your
God, that is
retirement
just
home.
wonderful. Oh
Or
my
the
God.
little kids running around and they're reading them stories.
Well,
So
that's why I did the
beautiful.
kids program because as a therapist, I'm thinking I'm rewiring people. Their brains are a mess. They've got anxiety, depression, they're suicidal. What if we, what if I wired kids for health, happiness, and success at the right time? Because kids are already in alpha state. They're not in beta like we are right now. And
Yeah,
so they're already there. So why don't we? That's why they're so impressionable. Why don't we just dump all this positive psychology into their brain when it's wide open?
right
And so
on.
that was the motivation to do the kids program. But what you just said, oh, honey, thank you for sharing that because Denmark very frequently is rated the number one country for happiness.
Yes.
And that is where it starts. Taking preschool children and bringing them together with their great great grandparents or friends of their grandparents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This,
And
but
then
we
same
don't
thing
do
with the
that.
college kids who may or may not even have a grandparent, and they're hanging out there like they're like there's a room for you. You can live here while you're in college. What a cool idea.
Well, then, and it develops compassion. It develops
Yes.
an awareness that if you think you got a problem because Susie called you a bad name, think of the person in the nursing home that's got an oxygen tank and can't breathe without it, or the person that's got arthritis and screams every time they have to. It makes you conscious and aware and compassionate. I
Yes.
love that. But you know what? When I was growing up, that's why I went into occupational therapy. My bachelor's is in that. Is my mom, I played the piano. I would go to the nursing home and play the piano. And that's one of the reasons I went into OT, because I saw that I just did it again. My aunt is 100, went back to my hometown in Wisconsin, Algoma, and I went to the nursing home and did the sing along. And everybody's coming in their wheelchairs and their walkers and their heads are down. And by the time I left, they were elevated. I'm serious. And so I said, I'll come back the next day because I wanted to do it again. It felt so good. And I didn't take the time to do it, but I'll do it. I'm going back in June. It makes their day. It's music
Yeah.
and it's the camaraderie of the group singing together. And you
Oh,
see,
yeah.
so a
That's
lot
so
of this
great.
feedback, God, this is so good. We had no idea what we're going to talk about, but I really like what we're talking about.
Okay, I see a new thing for your nonprofit. If you can switch it, if you can figure out how to connect the young people with the old people all around the
Oh,
USA.
oh my God, oh my God, there's one or two more lines left in that column. It wasn't as, I have community outreach. Oh my God, thank you for pointing that out.
My
Oh,
pleasure.
oh, I love it. And so, I just want to say something about dopamine because I become the dopamine diva, right?
I love it.
I love all these. I have so many little taglines and I don't know which ones I like best. But anyway, with dopamine, I am obsessed with it. So I am doing programs like for SHRM, human resource associations and so forth, corporations, and that's on workplace productivity, which, by the way, has seen its biggest drop in 75 years. So it's happening all over. It's not just in the tower that screws up when they're bringing in planes and helicopters. It's not let me just tell you, the controllers, you can't get a job unless you're in your 20s. I think 31 and less gets hired. The human brain, it's mainly males. The male brain isn't fully developed until about mid 20s. So the people that are directing these planes, they don't even have their brains fully developed, let alone the experience. And once they're 30, I don't choose a doctor under 30. No, anybody can read a textbook or do an article. No, I want somebody that has hands-on experience. They don't have the hands-on experience. And worse, we put them out to pasture. I think the max age is 52. They put them out to pasture. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of things I've learned since I was 52. I'm 30 years, 50, 60, 30 years more. Learned a lot.
Yeah.
And so we have to just look, and people have to understand the brain when you're hiring for things like that, because the decision making. So with dopamine, I want to just mention a few things. It is the internal motivation that drives behavior, good or bad. It loves repetition. So let's just give you an example. We've been talking about the different generations, right? When I grew up, I remember playing croquet every day. I wouldn't come in for breakfast or dinner. My mom would have a fit. I was obsessed with that. Then I liked tennis. And then, we would take walks in the woods. I grew up in rural Wisconsin. We went swimming every day. I was by Lake Michigan. And I loved nature. I remember picking dandelions, and what were they called? Cow cups, something. What were they called? And they were weeds. And we would pick those, but we'd have to hoe the garden because everybody had a garden, and we got in touch with the earth, right? And so I got a cat that's wanting to get in there. He's going to kill my screen. So anyway, that's how I got my dopamine. I had piano lessons. To this day, I play music from the time I wake up, except for now. So that is how I got my dopamine. Do I work hard? I'm in my 80s and I shouldn't, I know, but I work 12, 14 hours a day, but it's not work if you love what you're doing, right? And so I have all these positive dopamine fixes. Guess what? Kids only have one dopamine fix, and it's this. This is all they know, and that's why they're addicted to it. You know what? We were going, and my grandkids are part of this. We were going through the Rocky Mountains. We're all skiers. I still ski, and I remember being disappointed. My kids were looking at their phone. They were seeing the Rocky Mountains for the first time. I would have been so ecstatic, I would have peed in my pants, I'm sure. But you know what? This was more important than seeing.
Well, and
So
the interesting thing is, you can tell me why this doesn't work. The dopamine hit that we get from being on our phones, when we stop doing it, we feel sad and disappointed and dissatisfied.
that's
So
right.
the dopamine only works while we're inside the app clicking things.
Yes, you're right. And otherwise, we are going, oh, wow. I didn't think this was going to be so exciting. You just got me so wound up. You know, I am serious. Um, that is why we have suicide. The
Yeah.
suicide rate with our teens. It's going to be on that site with the kids too, because I also help teens. And I wrote a book on bullying. But you know what? Um, yeah, they're in withdrawal. So when
Yeah.
they don't have this, they're not getting any dopamine. Dopamine is a feel good experience. And the three things, by the way, that do you know what the three things are that give us the most dopamine? Guess what's on the top of the list? Three.
Sex,
What's one?
food. No.
Uh, actually, it isn't, and I'm kind of surprised. Oh, yes,
Okay.
one would fit. Chocolate chip cookies baking in the oven. That is food. Yes.
Oh,
You
all
are
right.
really good. What's your third one?
Ah,
Women do it more than men. Men
oh,
don't get off on it. Shopping.
shopping. Yes. People say I need my retail therapy as if it's a good thing.
And I'm a thrift shopper. I got so much crap in this house because I get such a good deal. But it amazes me how many Chico blouses I get for $1 with the tag still on. There's a lot of wealthy people on this lake. And I think a lot of the women, I'm going to tell you the truth, because they're usually the ones that are more with the time, assuming the old model is still in, but that's changing. But anyway, they have nothing better to do. So they can pay 500 for a blouse. I get it for $1, and I got too many. But the bottom line is that is how they're. It's like guys who want to go fishing or hunting.
Yeah.
There's, oh, I found the big fish. No, I found the Chico's blouse for $1. It's the same thing, and you get that onslaught of dopamine, and it feels so good. And like this actually is giving such a big dopamine fix that they have said that now sex is not as prevalent as it used to be. That's not a
Well,
big.
I
It's
I
gone
follow
way down, even with young people.
well, I saw a man talking about it, and he's probably got the stats because he teaches men how to have great sex with women. Oh, maybe just great sex with anyone. But he said there is the a really high level of ED in men in their 20s that they
Really?
cannot sustain what they need to have sexual relations because of this.
I didn't.
Because they watch porn, because they go online and get their excitement that way, they can't do human to human.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
that there's blow up inflatables that people have dates with. They have virtual
yeah,
dates.
right. Yeah.
Oh, this is just tragic. I did not know about the ED, but I'm not surprised. This is tragic. You know what it is? It really is. So I think the bottom line to all of you, Cher, Sonny and Cher. What is Cher's last name? I don't even know.
She's just Cher now.
Cher. Cher. Everybody knows Cher. So
Yeah.
anyway, Cher. Oh wait, Still didn't come in. So Cher said, somebody asked Cher, what is our greatest blessing? No, she said, what is our greatest curse? And she said, our brain. And then it was, what is our greatest blessing? Our brain. It's how we use it. And that's what I'm in this world to do, to just help better thinking, better decisions, better performance and results. That's what it's about. Every moment in life is a moment of conscious choice. You got to look at your life as a ball of clay, and you are the ceramicist. You can mold and shape it however you want. And if we're conscious of that, even with anxiety. When you think of that conscious choice and you can start thinking differently, you can rewire and refocus and reframe things. That's when you can start rewiring. And remember, the subconscious mind is a million times more powerful. You got to go to that deeper level. And you do that by getting into a relaxed, meditative type state. And then you start doing the visualization. What the mind sees, the body believes. I used it for everything. People pay $10,000 just to get coaching on getting a TED Talk. No, in August, I decided I wanted a TED Talk. Every night I'd visualize. And a couple months later, I was on the TED stage. I didn't
I
pay
love it.
a dime. You don't have to. I've canceled 3 surgeries with visualization. I was just on a call today with Carol. I think she said I could tell her last name now, Carolyn Kaufman. She works with John Azarap, the big neuroscience genius. Okay. She had MS. She was diagnosed when she was like 20. She's now, I think, 35. And for 8 years, she's been MS free. She was, as a girl to me, 20. But anyway, she was on a cane. She's symptom free of multiple sclerosis. And when I started doing visualization like 50 years ago, a guy at Ansell Company, the fire extinguisher people, I was one of the first on visualization, honest to God. Nobody was talking about it. And he came up to me and he said, I know they probably didn't believe you, but I know you're right. He said, I had MS and I lost my job because I lost my sight and I couldn't walk and I was in a wheelchair. I lost everything but my mind. And I heard about visualization and I started doing it every day. That day he was in his shorts ready to go jogging. Obviously not in a wheelchair. And he was at a conference and he got his job back. So I am telling you what the mind sees, the body believes. The only limitation you have, I don't care if you're in a wheelchair. I don't care if you have, I do care. Quadriplegia. Oh my God, is an OT. That was so hard on me. But whatever you have, the only real disability is a self-sabotaging belief system. And I'll
Oh,
tell you, speaking of the wheelchair, one of my colleagues, and I hear he's now in a nursing home, is W. Mitchell. He is also a motivational speaker. And I heard him 3 times in 1 month, once in Wisconsin, Colorado, and California. And I thought God was speaking to me because I used to ride a motorcycle. And they are dangerous. They are, because other people don't think you belong on the road. And it is true. It's not you, it's them. But the bottom line is, he talks about the time he was riding his motorcycle, slid under an 18-wheeler, and it
oh,
exploded. So he's conscious, seeing his fingers melt like M&Ms. Yes. And of course, he wasn't supposed to live, but they put him in rehab and he survived. And he gets out of rehab and he's an adventuresome person. So now he's flying a plane with only one engine. And the one engine goes out. So when you think you're having a bad hair day, would you think about W. Mitchell? And that'll give you a perspective. It's a darn good day. You better put a smile on your face. So
oh,
now, he was all skin grafted after the fire thing. He said like he'd go into parks and everybody'd leave because kids thought he was a monster. He's a beautiful person. Now he's in a wheelchair. He's now not a quadriplegic. And you know what his message is? I used to be able to do 10,000 things. Now I can only do 9,000, but I'm so appreciative of the 9,000 I can do. And he turned around that obstacle, which I have a talk, Unstoppable If You Can't Walk, Dance. And it's how I turned my obstacles into opportunities. But he turned that obstacle into opportunities in that he became a very highly paid motivational speaker. You know what I mean? Would he rather have? I don't know. He was so appreciative of his new life and his awareness and his appreciation, which brings me to the last point. If you don't have gratitude, don't even bother listening to the call, because God, the universe, only continues to give to those who are grateful for the change. You should have a gratitude journal, or what I do, I don't get up right away unless I'm catching an early morning flight. I don't even set an alarm. I don't schedule things early. But before you go to bed at night, That is a good time to just kind of be grateful for everything. You're going to sleep better, you'll have better dreams,
Yeah.
and you'll sleep deeper, and you'll be more refreshed in the morning. But the real crucial time to do this is it's in the morning, because you're coming out of that, that deeper theta, delta, and you're coming now into alpha. And so if you do your visualization, then 12 to 20 minutes is good. And just do your visualization, do your gratitude. And see, gratitude is a tricky thing. You're just not grateful for the things you have accomplished or did or have or can do. You're grateful for the things that you have not yet done, because you trick your brain into believing that it's already done. And so it shall be. And that is a fact. I had, it sounds pretentious, but I was living in a very nice house. It was called the Mansion by Home and Garden Channel. And that other light isn't working well. And so anyway, they called it a mansion. It was a nice pad. I went from that, Delissa, to being homeless. I lost every dang dime. It was 4 to 5 million. I had no idea how much I made, because there was enough there whenever I needed. And I was just too busy helping people, and the side effect was making money. But then I know when my mother died, I got about $250,000, and I only bought a $3,000 jet ski that I can remember. I was paying people back. So not only did I lose 4 to 5 million, another $250,000 in debt, and in a matter of years, a couple of years, I got out of hot water. And so I am so big on creativity, but creative problem solving. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And and I had an unbelievable belief system. I got one of the best spots on this lake. I ain't letting go of this. And I never had a doubt. See, if you have one doubt, it's like a cancer, and it'll get bigger and worse and better. And so I just knew, and it took 15 months, but I was living, my commode was a pail from the Dollar Tree. It was only $1 then. Now it's $1.25. I probably couldn't have afforded it. And I would just find places that were building, and they have those porta potties. So I would just empty my sewage every day. So I went from a mansion to that. But you know what? And people say, how did you do that? I wouldn't be able to do that for a day. You do what you got to do. How badly do you want it? If
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
want it more than the fear of what you got to do to get it, you'll get it. You will be successful. And I never had a doubt. I didn't know how it would happen. I don't know how it was going to come, but I knew. And it's gone up 1 million. It's gone up that much since yeah. So, I bought it on intuition. I spent over $500,000 20 years ago on a piece of dirt in 3.5 seconds. And I had no intentions of buying. I knew nothing about the real estate market in the Charlotte area. I was in Raleigh. And I came and I said, I just promised these women, because they wanted me to move to Charlotte, that I would, they wanted me to look at Lake Norman. And the guy's like, you got to see this lot. And I said, I'm not a buyer. I told you I'm fun, but I'm not a buyer. Well, I get out of the car and I said, oh my God, this could work. I'm putting in an offer and I want it closed by noon. That next day, and this is a fact, I checked it out, 3 people offered 100,000 more than the asking price, and I got it for less than the asking price. So you who likes and dreams, there's a chapter on dreams in my book, Why Cats Don't Bark. Intuition. But see, the thing with intuition, you got to know when to trust it, because here's the scoop, is that, intuition is really kind of like cosmic fishing. It's God's telephone. Intuition, listen to this, is logic on steroids. It's logic. People think that logic is here, intuition is there. No, 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 no. It's just more holistic. You get it in the picture, where the left brain logical person has to do 1 + 1 is 2 times 4.
Yes.
You
Yes.
just get it all. But it's knowing when to trust it. And here's the 2 factors: that sometimes wishful thinking can interfere and you make a bad decision, or fearful thinking. And that's a poor use of the imagination. Worry is a terrible use of the imagination. Look at it that way. So if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
clear that
Yeah.
it's not wishful and it's not fearful, if it's clear intuition, it's right every day in time.
Yeah, I tell people that if your fear is speaking, it's very loud and it feels jagged in the body. But if
Hmm.
your intuition is speaking, it feels calm. It feels like a quiet knowing, a quiet voice.
It is. It is that quiet knowing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when we talk about creativity, yeah, it could be just making the best meringue pie. Let me tell you a quick story. So there's a big strike in Chicago, and they're going down to Indianapolis. They can't get the lumber there, and they've got to get it there. It was urgent. There was a strike, and they were shooting at all the tires of the 14 wheelers or 18 wheelers. How do we get it there? Here's creative problem solving. So that when you're down and out, you don't commit suicide, you don't get depressed. You put your brain to work, you get rid of the negative thinking, the ants, the automatic negative thoughts. And the guy that was in here yesterday, I have him, he has a rubber band. You snap it every time you have a negative thought. And he said that was really working for me, but then the rubber band broke and he got it from work and he didn't have one at home. Wait a minute. I bet you there's a Dollar Tree or a Walmart someplace that has rubber bands. So isn't it interesting that we limit how we think? Like, you can't have another rubber band? Yeah.
Broke it.
So
Can't do it.
how did they get the stuff down to Indianapolis? They put a man in a nun's costume, or I shouldn't, habit they're called. Okay. They put him on a school bus, loaded up the truck. Who shoots at a nun in a school bus? That is the epitome of creative thinking. Do you like it?
I
Love
love it.
it. Love
I
it.
love it. There's
And I
always a
know
way
we're
around.
over, but it has been great, huh?
Oh my goodness, we could talk for hours, but I think we'll stop here. And the final thought that we were just talking about was gratitude and using gratitude when you wake up. And just one of my mentors taught me she does not get out of bed until it feels deeply and profoundly grateful for another day of life. So
Yep.
you don't have to be grateful for anything except that you woke up today.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
everybody did.
Not everybody can breathe without an oxygen tank.
True.
That's what I loved about my OT background. I saw people that couldn't walk or talk or breathe. And so I'm so grateful for the little things. If nothing else, that's what it taught me. And remember,
Oh,
you're grateful for what you want, but you still haven't seen. Yeah,
yes.
faith is to believe what we have not seen. And the reward of that faith is to see what we believe. Great way to end it.
I love it. Thank you so much. And we'll put all the info to find how to find you in the show notes.
Take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye for
Bye,
now.
everyone.